Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Michaela Parker, founder and executive director of the Alliance for Data Science and AI, or ADSA, and I'm here to welcome you to our brand new webinar series, Building the Future of Data Science and AI in Higher Ed, Lessons from Academic Leadership at the Front Lines. In this series, we're calling on our colleagues in the ADSA community to share their experiences building academic initiatives and programs in data science and AI. So the idea here is they will tell you what worked and maybe a little bit of what didn't work. Hopefully, sharing their stories will help you on your own builder journey. Before we begin, for those of you unfamiliar with ADSA, we are a community of data science and AI leaders, practitioners, and educators who believe in a just, equitable future where data science and AI are thoughtfully applied in all domains for the benefit of all. You can learn more about our events and activities at our website. The URL is on this slide, and it's also linked with the QR code. So for our kickoff event today, we are introducing the ADSA Advisory Council. I'm joined by my colleagues, Penny Atkins from the University of Utah, Tahir Ekin from Texas State University, and Barney Maccabe from the University of Arizona. And a quick reminder that this event, like all ADSA events, is governed by the ADSA Code of Conduct, which you can find linked at this QR code, and it's also in the footer of our website. But before we turn to our guests, I'm going to try something a little scary, which is that I want to do a quick live demo so I can show you where on our website you can learn more about this council and how to reach out to them. If you're not familiar with our website, this is what it looks like. And our menu system is right up here in these 3 bars. So if you click that hamburger menu, you get the different pages, that top line pages. And if you click the plus sign next to resources, you see that ADSA has organized resources based on what we think might be most helpful for our different constituents. And in this case, we're going to look at institution leaders and administrators. Click on there and you can see we have put together a whole ton of stuff that's useful for what we think is our leadership community in data science and AI. But today, we're going to talk about this very first one, the ADSA Advisory Council. So you can see that I get a link if I hover, and you can also click on Learn More. They both take you to the same place. Here's the landing page for the Advisory Council. You get a little bit about what this council is all about, and I'm not going to give it away too much because that's what our speakers are going to talk about. But I also want to highlight that just near the top here is a contact link, and that'll take you to a very short form where I encourage you to reach out to us with any question, big or small, and we will try to find the resources or the folks in our community that have expertise to help you out. Our leadership, as on this call, Penny and Tahir are the co-chairs of this advisory council. And then here are our council members. And you can see Barney Maccabe, who will serve as the moderator for this call, is one of our council members. Okay, so I just wanted to go through that really quickly. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome my colleagues, Penny Atkins, Director of Research and Science at the Scientific Computing and Imaging Institute at the University of Utah, Tahir Ekin, Professor and Fields Chair in Business Analytics at the McCoy College of Business and Founding Director of the Texas State Center for Analytics and Data Science at Texas State University, and Barney Maccabe, Associate Dean of Research at the College of Information Science at the University of Utah. So let's go ahead and start with Penny.
Perfect, thank you. And thanks for the introduction, Michaela. So at the University of Utah, we have a number of different data science and AI initiatives, but the one that I'm mostly representing today is our 1U Responsible AI initiative. This is an initiative that was launched in October of 2023, so relatively recently, to really focus on translational AI and how we can use that towards societal impact. So we have a number of different research focus areas, primarily environment, healthcare and wellness, and teaching and learning. So that has been a major focus of kind of our thematic areas over the first few years. And with those, we're working on really 4 aspects that come together here. So the overarching goal is to really catalyze our innovation in transdisciplinary and responsible AI. And to do this, we do 4 things. I'll start at the top right with research expertise. We have a number of different programs, from postdoc programs, faculty fellow programs, We're working on a graduate student program. We have seed grants, and we're also doing cluster hires for faculty in AI and data science. So we are doing a lot to support our researchers and grow their expertise, really ensuring that we have the expertise needed to start these collaborations that can really turn into societal impact. Moving counterclockwise, we have advanced cyber infrastructure. So we've done a lot to also invest in our local cyber infrastructure, both data storage as well as computing. So we have a Center for High Performance Computing at our ski institute, and that serves both the University of Utah as well as higher education across the state. And so that has been something that we've invested in over the last couple of years to really ensure that our researchers have the resources that they need. We do a number of community engagement efforts. So this can be anything from engagement with local libraries to the branching of public-private partnerships. We have a lot of efforts, including a community consortium and special interest groups that we've launched to support the community engagement arm. And then services and support, really ensuring that we can establish the support structures that are needed to make sure that this investment is both valuable now as well as in the future. And so there's been a lot of effort to ensure that we have kind of the foundation built for this initiative.
Great. Thank you so much, Penny. I think we'll hear from Tahir next.
Perfect. Thank you, Michaela, for the introduction. Let me get to the next slide if possible. Let me provide some institutional context first about Texas State University Center for Analytics and Data Science. We are located in San Marcos with a campus in North Austin in Round Rock, in between Austin and San Antonio. And as of fall, we had more than 44,000 students. Right now we are an R2 institution, but probably in the next classification it's more likely we will be R1. We are a Hispanic serving institution, minority majority, more than 60% of our students are minority, and more than 40% of our students are first generation. So we have founded CATS in 2023, so we have been also relatively new. And this was designed as a university-wide interdisciplinary hub for data science and AI. We have been fortunate to be supported by National Science Foundation, and we were able to set up the Texas State Expand AI initiative with contribution from 11 colleagues from 10 different academic units. Our main objective really has been supporting the research competitiveness. So overall, AI has been one of the 5 strategic priorities of the university, and we have been trying to do our share. So I will talk about different areas that have been in our focus. One of them is probably our core area of focus is research. And in the last fiscal year, we were able to work with 37 faculty across 17 academic units. We have supported their external funding submissions and research agendas. And the emerging research teams basically centered around health, water, agriculture, criminal justice, as well as adversarial AI. In addition, one of our focal areas is training, especially with a focus on AI literacy. We have been training faculty at different levels through our applied AI summer schools as well as high performance computing summer school. So one of our challenges at Texas State is we have some infrastructure, but there have been barriers to access that infrastructure. Lack of training has been one of them, so we have been trying to fill that gap. In addition, in terms of the interdisciplinary AI education, we have built a number of modules. We have reached almost 1,000 students in the last fiscal year through our modular trainings. This year, we have noticed that we have been mostly focusing on relatively more advanced tier data and AI science researchers. So we also started an AI research literacy program trying to incorporate more colleagues who have been starting their AI research journey. And lastly, in that area, We also have some student-centric programs. We have initiated Data and AI Lab, which aims to provide experiential learning opportunities for students, as well as a student engagement council. So having done that, our area, Austin, San Antonio, has been one of the emerging tech, data, AI ecosystems in the nation. So we have been trying to do our share, connecting with our industry colleagues, and we have been representing Texas State in regional and national events. So lastly, in terms of strategic focus, one of our priorities is to scale AI literacy across various Texas State personas, from the intro layer to the advanced layer. And we have set up some interdisciplinary AI research clusters. Now we want to deepen and expand them. Lastly, industry co-creation, as well as increasing the number of externally funded partnerships to diversify our funded research ecosystem, has been one of our strategic focus areas.
Thank you. All right, and last but not least, before we get started into the Q&A, we want to hear from our moderator, Barney Maccabe. I know you don't have any slides, but maybe you want to just say a few words about the University of Arizona and what you're doing with AI and data science.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do so. Thanks. So last summer, summer 25, we hired or created a new Chief AI and Data Science Officer for the university and hired David Ebert to lead that program. And the idea is to bring a unified vision for AI across the entire university. David reports mostly directly to the Senior Vice President for Research, but also has a dotted line to the Provost. So it's research and instruction combined, looking from the infrastructure all the way up to the capabilities of the university and how we grow AI across campus. It's been a whirlwind since the summer. We created the Office of Responsible AI. In that office is the Arizona Institute for AI and Society. AI to society is the sort of notion there. Created an AI and healthcare initiative. So tomorrow we'll spend a whole day on a symposium around AI and health. We've launched research communities of excellence focused on AI across the various parts of the campus, looking at grand challenges and how AI can address those challenges. Created an AI Insight series where faculty talk about how they're using AI, what they're doing with AI, how they're advancing AI across campus. We've launched an AI innovation pilot program, from pilots to impact, and sort of starting up and initiating a lot of those kinds of activities. And finally, David is in the process of launching an AI platform for the University of Arizona, which will include a generative AI capability, a Wildcat chat, an Arizona AI assistance, and an Arizona AI sandboxes. So importantly, what you see and what we're going to be leading into is there are many different ways to approach AI for campus and how we're approaching the different universities. And that will sort of lead us into the conversation for today. I'm going to start by asking Penny and then Tahir to tell us a little bit about the council, right? For people who are unfamiliar with this concept, what's going on with the Advisory Council? When was it created? What are the motivations for forming the council? And kind of what products do you see coming out of that? So let's start with Penny, and then we'll move to Tahir.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm happy to get us started, and I have great backup with both of you who can fill in any gaps. But this is an effort that was, I think, kind of brainstormed during the last ADSA Leadership Summit last probably March. And I think we've had a lot of conversations about kind of how we can support folks who are maybe either new or experiencing changes in their universities around data science and AI efforts across campus. And so we really wanted to put together an effort that would support those. And so the goal of the council is to be able to answer questions that folks might have. As Michaela mentioned earlier, this could be small questions or big questions, but really just having a place to go for answers. And so I think the goal is that the webpage serves as a bit of a landing page. There are some great links there, including links to a number of different efforts that ADSA has done over the last while, but the contact us button is really kind of the core function of the advisory council. And so that provides us input, or we'll receive an email letting us know that someone has a question. We're able to kind of find the right person to answer that. Our council has representation from kind of all sorts of different data science and AI efforts, whether those are more research focused. There's a couple folks with really great education expertise, big universities, small universities. Really, the intent is to be able to kind of be able to share our lived experiences. I think we've all brought different perspectives together, and being able to provide that to folks in the community who are seeking more expertise. So I think at a high level, that's kind of what the intent of the council is, but I'd love to hear more from Tahir on that as well.
Thank you, Penny. I think you did a great job summarizing our discussions throughout the past year. Uh, the way that I got involved, again, was after the summit, and basically when we were setting up the Texas State Center for Analytics and Data Science, I was able to come across the ADSA group, and I noticed that I learned a lot from even the resources that were already shared. And the main nice thing was that we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? Similar questions in a different institutional context were asked and were partially answered. And that's what I value also about going to the leadership summit, basically, because all of us in our institutional context have been trying to tackle similar questions, similar priorities. And some of us are far ahead in some initiatives. We are catching up on the others. So when I was talking to the group, I guess right after the leadership summit, this basically came up. Can we create a structure where this information exchange can be a little bit more structured? And I guess over the last 6 months, we were able to put a diverse group of academic leaders together. And I feel fortunate to be a part of the group. Again, the main idea here is that we are asking these questions generally in isolation. Can we basically have a group of peer academic leaders who may have come across a similar challenge and pick up their brain? So that's the way I see it.
Can I add another comment before you ask another question, Barney?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your kind of highlight of your experiences at Texas State reminded me of, why I thought it was so important to be engaged with this. I think when I first attended an ADSA Leadership Summit, we had just kind of launched a new biomedical data science effort on campus. We were just trying to figure out what else was going on campus, how to kind of frame that, what efforts would be most relevant, most impactful across our campus. I'd been involved with the ADSA Leadership Summit and found it super valuable for a few years. And then we had the large announcement about our responsible AI initiative. And so that really was like, okay, we have this really big effort that we need to do, and how do we set this up, and what's new, what's different than what we were doing previously. And so I think I came to Michaela and I talked to her about, who should I talk to about this? Like, who else might have good insight of where I could get started, or what things we should be considering to make sure that we don't, relive anyone else's mistakes. And so I think I think that is really what inspired me to be engaged with this advisory council, is the value that ADSA brought to me and my experiences through all of that process. I just hope that we can continue to share that with others.
I think you hit the key point that I wanted to bring up, and that is, don't make the same mistakes we've already made, right? Make some new ones, right? And part of that is get through this process, because we're all going through transformations, right? This is transformative to all universities. And how do we get through that process? How do we make that change? And yeah, you're going to step in it a couple of times, but how do we help you get back out of it and back on track? And so I think that's really, to me, a large key part of the council's about. So with that said, can you give some examples of the kinds of challenges that the Advisory Council is positioned to support, and what could be considered out of scope? And so, Tahir, I'll start with you on that. Can you give us sort of a sense on that?
Perfect.
In terms of challenges, I guess there are a few that we also try to summarize in the website. So one of them, I think it's more about where we start, how we design our ecosystems, right? I guess you can call it like institutional design and governance. Especially, most of us have started with analytics, data science type of initiatives, centers, and now most of us have been transforming so that we can address the emerging call, the transformation need around AI. So overall, again, that transformation started in some of the institutions a little bit earlier. As you suggested, what are the initial mistakes they may have done? So if you are just restarting your transformation right now, how can you strategically, proactively plan your own design? Obviously, every institution is different. These things need to go through the institutional lens, but at least it could give you an idea about what worked, what didn't in other institutions. So that's one of the areas, especially reporting structure, faculty appointments, the things in the weeds, right? It could be very different across the institutions, but they really determine the success or potential failure of some of our programmatic decisions. So that would be one area. Another thing I think overall ADSA and the advisory council group has some expertise, experience on is launching programs. It could be academic programs, it could be other sets of programs. Again, that peer knowledge sharing, peer-to-peer knowledge sharing could be valuable, we believe. Already ADSA has been doing several different types of programming, for instance, starting industry research center collaboration or academic collaboration. We also want to basically don't want to reinvent the wheel. We also want to share the existing resources with our community, potentially as a starting point, but then potentially connect our colleagues with the folks in the council or in the ADSO community that have the relevant experience. I guess a few other things that have come up, we thought that council could be relevant to the basically sustainability positioning. Obviously, there has been lots of hype around what we do, but how can we ensure that it's a sustainable, healthy ecosystem that we are creating? Again, back to the having things gone through the institutional lens, but at the same time, not repeating the common mistakes, I think is the goal. I guess a number of the council members have experience in cluster hiring or faculty talent development, training programs. So that could be one area also that comes to my mind. I don't know, Penny, if you have anything else to add.
No, I think that was a really good summary of kind of various topics that we can address. I think I think Barney mentioned like things that might be out of scope. And I think we are not consultants. We're not going to roll in and be able to, bring 10 people to your university and answer all of your questions. I think we discussed a lot of opportunities to potentially grow towards something like that. But at this point, it's something where likely we're going to be answering your question either through email, probably through an initial meetup, but then, 30 minutes to an hour of discussion, some emails. We're not able to kind of dedicate multiple days or multiple hours to something to answers at this point. And so I think thinking about questions that might be, how do I start from scratch is probably not a great question. But if I'm setting up something that's focused on research and, I might be housed within the VPR's framework or organizationally, I think the more that you can frame the question in terms of being allowing us to find someone who has comparable experience is helpful. And so I think each university is different. We're all going to have different learned experiences. Something that worked at my university might not necessarily work at Texas State or University of Arizona, but being able to kind of share whatever experiences that we have. We are not the end all be all in terms of answers, but I think providing some starting point for folks to get started in those conversations about how they could proceed or explore solutions to a specific problem.
So maybe the way to ask the question then is, I'm considering doing these things. What are the gotchas? What are the things I should be watching for as I start down that path? Is that kind of a way to think about how to do this? And
I think that's a great way. And like, I think the other thing that we can potentially provide is um, maybe even a list of potential programs that might be relevant to look at. Or, we can share our experience, but we also may have a broader view of the overall ecosystem in terms of what other universities might be doing. So yeah, I think the better you can frame it, the more we're likely to help. But I think even if you have questions about, where do I get started? I know I said that that isn't a great question, but I think as long as it's kind of like what programs might have a research program, we can provide a list of universities that we're aware of or something like that as well.
yeah, so give a little characterization of your university or your program, and then say, where do I get started? And that can sort of narrow it into saying, here are things to look over. Okay,
Right.
so
Yeah.
so who should be involved in this, right? There's sort of this question of, is this institute directors? Is this faculty, deans, provosts? Who is sort of the council, or who are you looking to have come ask questions, as it were?
I think probably the academic leaders, it could be basically ranging from provost, deans, institute directors, or faculty leaders. Obviously, different institutions have different setups. Some of them are more centralized, some of them are more decentralized. And I think that's one of the potential PowerPoints of ADSA community as well, because it has a variety of organizations at different points, representing different communities. But I would say probably academic institution leaders in data science and AI.
Great, great. Thanks very much. Okay, we're going to move on. What perspectives can the council offer that are often missing from campus conversations about data science and AI? So Penny, I'll start with you and hand off.
Yeah, I think one thing that we provide is more expertise in the data science and AI. I think we've all seen the lived experience of, as was mentioned earlier, the transition from an initial data science initiative to something that's more focused on AI, moving into the chief AI officer space. I think that we have all kind of seen that transition, and I think we're very good at evolving in that space. I think each university has a different culture. So that's going to be something that's important from your own university. But I think we bring that outside experience with maybe more lived experience in the specific focus area. A research institute on biology or a specific disease or medical area is going to be much different than something broad that's data science or AI related. We are seeing projects across campus from humanities to engineering to medicine. And so really being able to have that broad perspective about something that needs to support that broad area of research, I think is something that we can bring to the table.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think potentially that cross-institutional pattern recognition is what the council can bring to table, which can help more sustainable, basically program design. Because I guess overall ADSA and the council brings the collective wisdom, in perspectives of institutions at different maturity levels, or depending on the program, they may be at a different phase of their evolution. And I think basically learning from that, both prospectively and retrospectively, I think may help our academic institutions to come up with more sustainable designs, academic program designs. And I think it may help also all of us to balance the internal needs, the external pressure, because again, transformation is so fast. Sometimes we also don't have time to stop and think about what we are doing and how it would age, right? So I think just getting out of the internal zone and then looking at your own program with a colleague at a peer institution that have already done that could add value.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's happened, right? This field has shifted so quickly, is that many of us started out as institute directors for a very specific area, say data science, right? And that was where a lot of us came from. And all of a sudden, we got heaped on with now you're responsible for AI for the university, right? Or for the entire campus. And how does that work? How do you make that change, right? And how do you bring that perspective in? And I think one of the things that is worth thinking about a little bit and talking about is if you have sort of this pop-up strategy, right, that things are happening here, or do you sort of come down top down and say, this is how we're going to organize and coordinate? A lot of these become sort of unfunded or not clear mandates for the institutes to sort of take on these responsibilities. Any thoughts about sort of where those challenges are or how people ought to be addressing them?
Yes.
Good
No,
thoughts, I hope.
I think that is such, I think we've all explored the like top down versus the bottom up efforts. And I think it's really, I found that some of the most insightful information talking to folks across ADSA is kind of like, how do you balance that? Because there needs, either method by itself isn't going to work that well. And so being able to find that middle ground where you have a little bit of expertise from both ends and enthusiasm from both ends, I think is really important. And so I think navigating some of those really interesting spaces where there may be, a institutional desire to set up a school of data science, but if you don't have a faculty member that's interested in it and there's no desire to hire somebody, then you're not going to have a lot of success. And so I think we've all seen those areas where it's really easy to see something fall through the cracks if you don't have the right enthusiasm. And so I think some of the effort or some of the expertise that we can also provide is, in this scenario, make sure that you have, someone to help shepherd it, and it probably isn't as simple as that, but I think we've probably seen all sorts of things where we're in those areas where it's like, okay, this isn't really going to succeed unless you have someone that can help with a specific aspect. And so I think that's really where we can bring some expertise to it as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, Barney, your point about the interdisciplinarity, I think is one of our potential also strengths, right? We all have been trying to address in our institutions, like, because academic institutions by nature, by design, are more structured around disciplines. And then these basically areas that we have been working on, data science, AI, are inherently interdisciplinary. So for instance, how do you bring the societal ethical implications of data science and AI, right, across the university? So those are part of our mandates, but at the same time, it requires both having a good understanding of what may work, what is more likely to work in your particular situation. So it's challenging indeed. So I think the way I see the council is also some sort of a thought partner. So you can brainstorm about some of your challenges again with another colleague.
So there's a great question in the chat. I'm going to bring it up real quick here. We've been talking about institutes, data centers, and academic programs. We kind of missed the libraries, right? And they're a key part of all of this activity. So how do you see the libraries fitting in? And thanks very much for the question, but I'll let Tahir start on that one. So how are you fitting the libraries in? Where do you see the libraries sort of fitting into our advisory council and pieces around that?
Sure. Actually, let me start providing some examples from our experience at Texas State. So, for instance, we are located in the libraries. So, because they have owned some of the data space historically, and they have especially training programs targeted for students and especially open source initiatives. So we have been working with them basically, especially when it comes to some of the research programs as well as some of the student-centric initiatives. So I think libraries are basically a big part of our ecosystem, thinking about the big picture. And I think also what, for instance, inspired me, I think it was 2 years ago, we also have a few libraries represented in the ADSA community. So I was talking to some of our colleagues, and basically there have been a number of initiatives that they had been informing the ADSA community about. So overall, I guess there is still more potential to elevate what they have been doing and sharing with the grander community. So there is definitely a major piece, the way I see it.
I would agree. We're not formally associated with the libraries in any way, and maybe that's something, a room for improvement. But I think we have been very fortunate to be engaged with the libraries kind of from the beginning. I think we have a couple of research data librarians who have been amazing. We have a repository through the libraries. And so I think given the importance of data in everything data science and AI, separating from the libraries is just a mistake. And so I think having a formal relationship is ideal. If you don't have a formal relationship, I think making sure that you do have an informal relationship, but the libraries are just so critical for everything that is happening in terms of data, and making sure our librarians are super useful in making sure that all of our our data in the repositories is actually stored appropriately and is accessible and documented. And so I think without that, so much effort is wasted. And so I think definitely focusing on libraries and elevating everything that they're doing is so important to data science and AI.
Yeah, I think I'll double down on that notion that it's the data, right? And if we don't understand the data and its context and fully appreciate that, we're going to struggle with how do we do AI. And so you're starting to see this. People are starting to pick up and realizing that that background is essential for supporting what we're doing. Stella put in a link to a paper that Penny and I can agree is a great paper. And Tahir, and this is a paper where we started a workshop quite a while back on the challenges that we face in creating these institutes across campus. It's a bit out of date right now, but it's hopefully coming out. It does give some of that challenge of what the unfunded mandates or the new mandates that are coming in. Let's see, I'm looking in here. I'm not sure, there's a comment about RDA. Oh yeah, the Research Data Alliance, RDA, is another conversation to be involved in. So yeah, and they typically come out of the library sciences programs. Okay, so sort of as we move on, how do you think, or how do you hope that the council's work will shape the future of data science and AI in higher education? So not just reacting to, but how is the council going to help shape what we're going for in the next few years? I'll let either one of you start. Somebody just start jumping in.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I think you mentioned one thing, and I think this is apparent to all of us, but the space of AI for sure, and data science as well, is moving so quickly. And so I think as this council, we can kind of come together and be able to share templates of success. And so really allowing folks to not have to start from scratch. And I think in that regard, it elevates data science and AI throughout the academic environment. And hopefully that spreads to commercialization and things like public-private partnerships. But ideally, I think that this really lays the groundwork to provide templates for success, and that we collectively can help shape how folks are doing data science and AI. And hopefully that's a very responsible way of doing things. But I think, just having a central area where folks can come together and have those discussions, I think is a little bit of a springboard to ensuring success broadly.
Yeah, agreed. I think Penny used the word I really like the template, right? Institutional template, because most of us are building as we go, considering our institutional context. So I guess even if the council is able to create or basically offer some of those sustainable institutional templates, I guess that would be win. And I guess if overall if we can cohesively all together support our joint academic ecosystem, that would be a basically a major win. So at the end of the day, basically the hype may change or the priorities may change. So we also would like to build with sustainability in mind. So if we can help basically our academic system build better uh, designs, I think that would be a huge win.
So one thing I want to pick up on a little bit is I come out of the high performance computing community, right? And this was a discipline or a focus that was mainly for the STEM disciplines, right? So you did computational chemistry, computational physics, and things around that. And then the data science community sort of broadened that out, right? So lots of disciplines have data to try and analyze. And AI, I think, takes it to another level entirely, right? In terms of everybody is involved in AI. It becomes part of the fine arts curriculum. It becomes part of every curriculum on campus, the humanities. Everybody's engaged, right? And somehow. And so how does that impact what you want to do on the council and sort of that broadening thinking? Because we tend to come out of the STEM disciplines right now. And sort of the breadth is so much more, so much greater with AI.
Yeah, sorry to hear you look like you were gonna
Oh,
say something.
please go
Okay.
ahead, Penny.
I was just gonna say, I think one of our kind of underlying points that we also have a chief AI officer who happens to also be the director of our ski institute. But I think through that office, we have this kind of underlying idea of AI as infrastructure. It's no longer something that you have to think about. It's something that we can provide to everyone, and being able to have it as a really democratized kind of infrastructure that's available without question. And so I think with that, there's much more of this education and engagement, much more person to person, and much more not just here's our big cyber or like high performance computing center. Good luck. It's much more engagement. And I think that that makes it so much more important to have some of these centralized resources where folks know to go, where to ask questions, whether that's about how to engage with AI in their classroom or in your research. But I think because of kind of this area where computing is becoming more and more accessible and available to everyone, I think that it's so important for folks to know where to go and to ask questions. Otherwise, I do think that we're at a huge risk of leaving people behind.
No, totally agree. I think that's one of the things we have been focusing on, identifying the user groups and trying to reach out to them where they are, right? They may be just starting, they may be skeptic, or they may be domain experts who want to add computing or AI to their research workflows, or they may be ready, right? They may be ready for, let's say, uh, technology transfer and the other steps. So just providing resources and working with them, I guess the people support, right? Infrastructure is one thing, but people support is another. I think that's important. But overall, I think let me also try to address Michaela's question about deliverables we imagine for the council after a few iterations of conversations. As Michaela pointed out, those templates I think is a good basically deliverable. But it's also about like figuring out what are the best practices, what are the evidence-driven frameworks that worked in a particular institutional context, and how we can scale them. So I think scaling is one of the key things, at least given that this transformation is relatively new and basically changing our academic institutions as we know them. I think any basically scalable best practice It could be a document, it could be a conversation, it could be a video as we are doing. I think that would be a good resource. And I think the another piece is again, we are all building as we go, but if we can create a community-driven basically body where institutional leaders can go to proactively, I think that would be a win. Because the way I see it, everyone has something to give back and something to learn from this community. So it's more about, I guess, facilitating that exchange. And I guess my hope is hopefully we will be able to accomplish that.
Anything else to add on sort of deliverables or things
Yeah,
coming up?
I think for deliverables, as Tahir was talking, I thought of, essentially having something where it's a bit of a playbook. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but something where, folks can figure out a little bit more, like have resources to go through to say like, okay, what does a standard institute look like? Obviously, this varies with the paper that Stella shared, but I think, giving some of those ideas of how things might look at various institutions and examples, I think the more that we can kind of standardize what's happening across universities, the more we can share. So I do think having templates, having maybe a playbook that helps guide people from the beginning, and then just creating a larger community of folks who want to share their expertise. And I think so much of this is important because we all have different lived experiences. And so while our advisory council is a really intelligent and broad group, I think the more folks that we can get engaged in some of these conversations is really important. And I'll reiterate the point that I think the Leadership Summit through ADSA is a great place for this conversation, but this is something that can happen throughout the year. I think Michaela may also throw that in the chat, but I think it's so important to just have somewhere to come together and have those discussions about, okay, this is happening at my university. Has anyone else seen this? How did you address it? We're moving from the VPR to the provost, or, we're trying to set up this academic program, but we're seem like we're stepping on toes of executive education, or so I think that there's just a lot of different conversations that we've all probably had, and so providing a place for folks to come together and have resources that they can peruse through, but also having a contact that they can reach out to.
I agree. I think that important part of the council is that it exists and it continues to exist in the sense of if you don't do these things, here's the path you're on, right? And so take that to your leadership and say, we need these kinds of resources. We need this kind of support. We need, in order to grow this, if this is where you want to go, here's what it costs to get in or what it takes to do that. I want to go back to infrastructure real quick. And one of the hallmarks of really good infrastructure is it disappears, right? It becomes ubiquitous and nobody even knows that it's there until it breaks, of course. And then everybody knows that it's not there and not working correctly. So again, sort of how does that fit into the council and thinking about that, right? And we've mentioned some things about sustainability, right? But there's also this sort of failure of the infrastructure, or there's catastrophic or transient failures and things around that. So how do you think about infrastructure around that? I think I twisted it completely off the side. So
Yeah, I guess from
good.
yeah, in Texas State, I guess the challenge has been most of these researcher or instructor personas in the university have different needs, right? How do you come up with a model that satisfies the needs at the same time you are basically continuously updating it because the needs dynamically change and become bigger. So how do you do that resource allocation? I guess that's one of the questions we continuously have. On the other hand, you also need to provide training and access to the resources that you have invested in. I guess in terms of that, at least from the shared expertise point of view, obviously most of our institutions have slightly different models. So it might be worthwhile to also learn from those models' outcomes and see what may be working better, because obviously we are continuously making those infrastructural renewal or sustainability decisions. So I think that could be helpful to share across the community. I
One
don't
of the
know.
things that I was sort of going for on that was this notion that you probably need higher level support. The infrastructure needs to go higher than it had before, right? The physical infrastructure, when you're thinking about computational science, you can give an explanation that's very technical to somebody as to why their application is not running when they expected it to, right? And at this point, you can't do that, right? You need to really get to meet people where they are, and the infrastructure needs to meet people where they are. We're partnered with RSE, US RSE, and some of that with ADSA. And so that may be another piece where the council can be supportive of what are the other organizations that we're partnering with, because and why, and how to engage with those organizations as well.
And I
Totally,
think
I agree.
so much, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go.
I think so much of, what is on folks' mind, whether it's probably not necessarily the question that they might come to this council with, but I think it should be, is how are we addressing AI literacy across our campuses? Like, what's happening? I think we are all getting pulled into conversations around, how do we use this in the classroom? How do we ensure that our students know the risks or the benefits or the potential of AI? And so I think that there is so much that's happening both in our broader communities as well as on our campuses around this idea of AI literacy, making sure that folks understand what they can use, what they can't use, how they could use it, how they shouldn't use it. And so I think that in itself is such an important question for us to come together about as well. And so I think even if it's not necessarily a question around how do I set up a new program or how do I approach this, I think that we're all working through these questions. And I think the more questions that we receive through this advisory council, the more opportunities for different perspectives to be included in, say, a white paper or something that we could put out that could be useful across the board. So not only people who are going to hit the contact us button, but broader than that. And so I think one aspect, and this kind of goes back to Michaela's point, is, the more that this advisory council gets exposed to other ecosystems and other questions, the more likely that we can provide more comprehensive responses and potentially resources.
Yeah, and it could be some of the issues that are coming out much more in our broader society or our communities that we live in, right? And how do we approach those? So this whole push for data centers, right? And it's somewhat controversial, right? And how much should we as universities get involved in that conversation, and how should we approach that? I think that's some of the things that the council can also be very engaged on. Okay, so we are reaching the top of the hour, and I think Steve's put in a note about the next ADSA Builder series that's coming up. And so some registration links there, some pieces for USRSE, lots of things in the chat going on. And I'm going to turn it back over to Michaela in case she wants to have any closing comments in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, thank you all. That was really great. I do want to highlight what Steve put in the chat about the next series, because we're going to hear from Sarah Sepp at Denison University, which is a small liberal arts college, talking about kind of the breadth of institutions we're going to highlight in our council, and also Linda Clark at Brown University. And they're going to talk about education, which we didn't really talk about much during this call. So they're going to focus on data science and AI curriculum development. But this also reminds me of one of the things that Penny mentioned about what's out of scope. Like the council's not meant to be like the place you go to for somebody to develop your curriculum for you, or like tell you what should go in the data science degree. There's other great organizations working on that right now. But, don't let that stop you asking questions, because I do think the power of the council is if the folks on the council don't know the answer, they know someone who knows the answer, right? Like the network capability of ADSA is really powerful here. So yeah, I think with that, we don't need to keep folks any longer. Thank you, Penny, Tahir, and Barney for providing all of these insights and giving us a nice overview of the council. And we all look forward to hearing from our audience and everyone else in the near future. So please have a great rest of your day. And don't forget to join us in just a couple weeks for our next iteration, March 4th. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.